Hi, my name is Pat, and this is my channel, Book Chat with Pat, and I'm glad that you're here. Today I'm going to be talking about what I read for the first week of Rocket Summer. That's the first week of July. During this first week, we're reading works of science fiction from the very early days in the 19th century right through 1939. So this week, I read a couple of short stories in the Wesleyan Anthology of Science Fiction. And this was a book that was a gift to me by Michael K. Vaughan, who is the creator of Rocket Summer. So thank you once again, Michael, for this beautiful book, which is just quite a treasure. So Gareth at Book Songs and Other Magic and I went through this volume, and we picked out stories that we are going to read together for each of the weeks of Rocket Summer. So for this first week, we read the story The Man Who Evolved, which was written by Edmond Hamilton. This story originally appeared in April of 1931 in Wonder Stories, one of the pulp magazines that was very popular at that time. We both read it in this terrific anthology. This is a science fiction story featuring a cosmic ray machine which causes the acceleration of the evolutionary process, and it leads to absolutely disastrous consequences. The story is told by a narrator named Arthur Wright. He visits a former classmate, Dr. John Pollard, along with another former classmate and friend, Hugh Dutton. Pollard has summoned his two school chums to help him with an experiment. He has developed this machine which will bombard the person inside the machine with cosmic rays which will hasten the evolutionary process. But he can't operate the machine by himself. He needs somebody to operate the machine while he goes inside the machine to experience this accelerated evolutionary process. So that's why he needs his friends there. And of course, they're very skeptical of the whole process and not at all sure that they want to get involved. The results of this sped up acceleration of the evolutionary process are at first very interesting and thought-provoking, but as the evolutionary process continues, the results become absolutely horrifying. Pollard evolves 50 million years every 15 minutes of exposure to these cosmic rays. I think we are meant to be appalled and horrified by the results. Certainly by even the idea that Dr. Pollard wants to experiment in this way, because his experimental inquiry seems to be absolutely devoid of any kind of ethical considerations. It's definitely a very pulpy story. It's shocking. It's also very entertaining. It's definitely completely lacking in scientific information, but it's still, it considers some interesting concepts, I think. As I was reading it, it felt more like a horror tale than it did science fiction, and it was kind of fun. The next story that we read was Leslie F. Stone's story, also in this volume, and that was The Conquest of Gola, which was also from the same 1931 edition of Wonder Stories. We chose this story in an effort to include some fiction written by a woman. And Leslie F. Stone was definitely one of the early writers, early female writers of science fiction. In this story, the planet Gola is actually what we know of as the planet Venus. And on this planet, the female gender is considered the superior gender. And the males of the species are basically there for companionship and as sort of, they're described as gentle consorts who are there for the purpose of reproduction and specifically producing more daughters. The planet is visited by aliens from another planet, and these are clearly supposed to be men from the planet Earth. They announce upon their arrival that we come, quote, for exploration and exploitation. We come as friends. And they don't seem to see that there's a contradiction in that announcement, that we come for exploration and exploitation and as friends. The female characters in this story are not particularly sympathetic characters, nor are the Earth men who are invading Venus. The gender reversal in the story is most definitely lacking in subtlety, but I guess for its time, 1931, a lack of subtlety may have been necessary. Gareth and I both discovered in our reading that Leslie F. Stone was one of the very few early women writers of science fiction who did not disguise her gender in her writing. She did change her name. Stone was not actually her last name. Her name is sometimes listed as Silverberg and sometimes as Silverbert, but she wrote as Leslie F. Stone. But the Leslie F., that was her real name. And so she was not trying to deceive anyone by writing as a male or by writing, simply under initials. We also discovered that, as a woman writing science fiction in the 1930s, she was up against a great deal. She submitted many stories to the pulps, and she reported that she got one response from John W. Campbell, who was most influential in the pulp magazines, that he returned one of her submissions to her with a note. He wrote, quote, "I do not believe that women are capable of writing science fiction, nor do I approve of it." So kudos to her for keeping at it and getting some of her stories published. Finally, both Gareth and I read this week H.G. Wells' The War of the Worlds. This is a novel that Gareth has read many times. I think I tried to read this when I was a little kid. I remember my brothers having this book. I remember reading some of it. I don't think I ever completed the whole novel as a kid. I certainly have read and heard the radio version of the story. That's what most people know, and I've seen a couple of the film versions as well. This novel was originally written in serial form. It first appeared in the UK in Pearson's magazine between 1895 and 1897, and it appeared in the U.S. in Cosmopolitan magazine in 1897. It was published as a full-length novel in 1898. This is considered one of the earliest novels to depict a conflict between humans on Earth and extraterrestrials from outer space. It's the story of a nameless narrator and his younger brother who are trying to escape as London and the southern England are invaded by these creatures from Mars. Many people, most people probably know of this story because of the 1938 radio drama version, which was directed by and which starred Orson Welles. And that radio version of the story caused an absolute panic because people tuning in a little bit late understood that the events being depicted in the radio drama they misunderstood them as factual, didn't understand that this was a fictional story that was being read to them. So the Martians arrive in these metallic, mysterious cylinders, and they come out of these cylinders and they begin incinerating human beings who get in their path with these heat rays. The work is considered important for many reasons, largely because it's a first in many areas. It's a very early example of, the conflict between human beings and aliens from space. It's also one of the early works to theorize about the existence of intelligent life forms beyond the Earth. And it's also important because it has a social message that it's trying to get across. It's most definitely making a commentary on the morality of imperialism. Remember, it was written during the latter part of the 19th century. This was a period of time in the British Empire, when Great Britain was the predominant colonial power on the earth. So what we have here, in these brutal Martian invaders who are coming and trying to conquer England and take over England, we have a picture of invaders who have a kind of imperialist agenda of their own. The novel is absolutely thrilling. It reads as a very exciting first-person account of the invasion and of the efforts to escape, and it did not disappoint. This was a great kickoff to Rocket Summer Week 1. So this coming week, we're moving into the 1940s, and Gareth and I will again be reading from the Wesleyan Anthology of Science Fiction. And this week we're going to read Thunder and Roses from this volume. And this is a story by Theodore Sturgeon. Additionally, I'm going to read several stories from the Science Fiction Hall of Fame, Volume 1. There are almost a dozen stories in this collection that come from the 1940s. So I'm going to read around in this collection as well. And I also have great hopes of reading some of the stories by Lee Brackett, another early female writer of science fiction. She's considered the queen of the space opera. And she was also, she was married to the person that wrote the first story that I talked about, the one about evolution, the Man Who Evolved by Edmond Hamilton. That was Lee Brackett's husband. So in addition to some of her short stories, I also would like to read her novel. It may be a novella, Lorelei of the Red Mist, which I have on my Kindle. And you'll notice that it says that it was written by Lee Brackett and Ray Bradbury, who's another one of my very favorite early, classic science fiction writer. She started writing the novel. She was also a screenwriter, and she was called to go off and help with the writing of the screenplay of The Big Sleep. Now, this was the screenplay for the movie The Big Sleep, based on Raymond Chandler's private investigator novel featuring Philip Marlowe, The Big Sleep. So I'm kind of there's a connection here with Private Eye July as well. So she went off to work on the screenplay for The Big Sleep, and Ray Bradbury came in and finished Lorelei of the Red Mist. So I don't know anything about this except that backstory, so I'm kind of curious about that, and I hope to get into that in week 2. So I hope that you're joining us for Rocket Summer. If you are, please let me know in the comments below what you've been reading and what you hope to read as the month progresses. So, as always, I thank you for watching. I hope that you're doing well. I'll speak with you again soon. Take care.